enough.
Doesn't help.
We'll fix it in post, I guess. We don't want to. We can't waste any more of Chris's time because, Chris, we got to open this up while we start this. That we have to apologize for the rescheduling mishaps of everything. You're a
I'm
busy
sure that's
guy.
my fault too. Yeah, I'm
No. Your dollar per hour is a lot more expensive than our dollar per hour. So, but the way we messed up was just total parenting, kind of dad parenting fart. But before we get into it, let's do a little lightning round questions so people get to know you, and then we can let them tell you who you are, or we can let the guests do their own bio because I can't read out loud, and Eric doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So is a hot dog a sandwich?
Ooh. I would say yes. Meat between two pieces of bread, except they're connected. So that's an interesting one.
It's not a win if he answers either way. Like your accent, just because he answers. Okay, sorry, I get upset by that question. When's the last time you cried?
Probably about a week ago. I'm an emotional guy.
What? Any reason why?
Insurance commercial just hit me the right way. You never
Wow.
know.
Progressive really. I thought those were funny commercials. What time do you wake up in the morning?
Between 5:30 and 6:30.
When you order spicy food, mild, medium, or hot?
Medium. Want it to burn a little, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what blood type you are?
I should. I donate blood quite often. It's whichever one they seek quite often because I get calls, feels like weekly, from the Red Cross to go donate more.
Oh, you might be O negative then.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes.
What are you collecting? Like,
yeah, I'm like, do you need my social security number next?
Like, what is this? What is this line of questioning?
What's your birthday and social security? It was the next two.
How about this? If you could transform into any animal and you can go back and forth, what would it be? And it can be nefarious reasons.
You know, something that could fly.
Well,
right? Think about just the convenience of that alone.
Yeah. When did you lose your virginity?
Oh shit!
Yeah, we hit hard on this program.
Yeah, but this is some hard hitting journalism. It's sometime in high school.
Must have been special. Does God exist?
Now that's a big one. I'm spiritual, but I don't know if I'm super religious, but I find it quite interesting that all the major religions pretty much line up on some pretty big facts and all celebrate at least one central God to give them hope.
What movie's a guaranteed laugh for you?
Super Troopers.
Nice. Classic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You want to play
or really anything with Will Ferrell. I gotta say. They're just great.
Last two questions. Did you watch or listen to this show before coming on?
I did an episode. Found you guys quite amusing and hysterical, so that's good. But not a ton. But I'm excited to be on now.
Hey, one counts. We'll take one.
That means it's watch clips. And then, what advice would you give your 13-year-old self?
Oh, do hard shit. It'll make you a better person.
I like this guy. You
Chris,
scored 100 on my questions.
You've earned yourself a plug. Tell us about who you are, what you do, why you're better, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So Chris Van Dusen, senior partner at Solyco Capital. Graduated college, started in finance, was at a real estate investment banking firm, came out to California end of 2009. Company I came out for restructured. I like to say they restructured me out. And so 75 days after I moved to California, I'm unemployed. So I became a forced or accidental entrepreneur over the kind of next, 11 years. Created some companies, sold 3 of them, 2 in 2021, 1 in 2019, raised a couple funds in the cannabis space, grew a media company, helped scale a bunch of big brands. And then after my last acquisition in 2021, I joined Solyco Capital as a senior partner. So I help run our capitalization and sourcing. So fancy for I help find great deals for the firm and then raise capital against those. And we try to get great returns for our investors. We're a private investment firm, so we build capital strategies for high net worth, ultra high net worth, and family offices.
Yeah, you come in, you're kind of like the wolf in Pulp Fiction. You're coming in, fixing the situation, getting out of there pretty quickly. Is that fair to say?
Coming in. Yeah, we're coming in. I think there's a couple ways of looking at it. We're coming in and seeing an amazing company that has great growth potential. They have some product market fit, and they really need to get somewhere big, but they need capital to do so. And if we believe in them, we believe in the founders, we believe in their strategy, what they're building, we'll provide that capital. In a lot of cases, we'll provide some talent as well to help them scale and get them to that next level, that either they need more capital or they're ready to be acquired.
I mean, you're PE driven, right? VC firm. Like, how's that perspective changed your view on startups?
So, there's a couple of things when we go through the diligence process that I look at, right? Because our process, I'll save you the long kind of scientific side of all that we do on balance sheets and forecasts and all that.
Sure.
But the majority of reasons companies fail is either misalignment with founders, trying to boil the ocean, right? Going a mile wide, an inch deep instead of an inch wide and a mile deep into a certain focus. And you can learn a lot about that from understanding the founders. I love investing in second and third time founders. They've done it before, right? As someone who's done it myself, like I have all the battle scars one can think of, right? Feeling like you're going to be out of business tomorrow and feeling like you just set the world on fire the day later and then feeling like you're out of business the next day. And that roller coaster isn't for everyone. And so the vetting process really comes down to the people as much as anything. That's who you're betting on, right? We all like the horse, but the jockey needs to be really truly understood. And so I don't think when I was growing companies, I had that same vision, right? Now, ultimately I was successful in getting some out. So you could say, you know, the jockey worked with my co-founders, but ultimately misalignment and not having the grit and resilience to see it through from the founder's perspective is something we really vet really heavily.
Now, I meant to kind of go backwards a minute. You're a former D1 pitcher, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
You're one of the few baseball
pitcher.
players that are not Durs. I feel like a lot of baseball players, they can't talk at all. Like they're just they are baseball. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
so
all.
so the good thing is, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I went to William & Mary in Virginia, which is a pretty good school. I really leveraged baseball to get me into that school, which I was very happy about. 2 years in, I needed Tommy Johns on my elbow. And so my career, I hung up the cleats. But the great part about it is they couldn't kick me out of school. So I got to stay at William & Mary and graduate a degree in economics. And, you know, if you look back on my career from whether I was, you know, early part in sales, I was a bartender in college, right? The idea of being able to speak, to weave a yarn, to, you know, to have a narrative, to be able to meet and talk to anyone is something that over time I learned. I wouldn't say it came natural. But I also had a father who was in sales my entire life. So I got to have a shotgun view of what it meant to be personable and really understand people and really care about people. That's really the difference too.
Bartender in college is the best job, especially on a slow night when you can just kind of actually have casual conversation, but it does help that muscle. But wait, so you're a D1 pitcher that, what do you feel, how do you feel about the NIL kind of the economics of that? Because my thought is they opened the gate, they made it too free market too quickly. And now we're in this weird kind of era and you can't go backwards.
No, you can't. I think you put some regulation around it from the top, from the school and the booster level and what they're doing on, you know, building these conglomerates. But you're right, the cat's out of the bag. And, you know, I remember, you know, we could sign autographs when we were in town doing little signings, but you couldn't have any form of compensation because it would break NCAA rules. The interesting thing is there's such a high concentration in NIL, right? Around football, basketball, things like that. You know, I've talked to a lot of individuals still involved with college baseball, and unless you're top 20, top 30 in the country, there's really not much for you in the NIL. You know, I'll make the joke, maybe I'd get some free meals at a restaurant or go to an autograph signing at a car dealership, but there's not much more that would have happened, in my case, if it was around today. So for a lot of sports, it's not as impactful as you would think. But certainly when you look at certain kids who are making decisions whether or not to go to the draft versus staying an extra year in school, and making $4-5 million to stay in school versus getting, their signing bonus and their salary, it's definitely changed. And it's changed the way that I think all teams are running how to build their teams, because now players are going for the most amount of money. There's no kind of, I'll say, coach or team loyalty across the board. So it's put a lot of pressure on the schools.
You
How hard was your
co-founded.
fastball? I want to.
Yeah. What was your pitch?
Yeah, high 80s in the late 90s.
I want to know what kind of pitcher you were.
Yeah, so I was throwing high 80s in the late 1990s, so 96, 97, 98. But yeah, high 80s, that was something from a left-hander back then. Now with velo training and all these guys, man, throwing 98 in high school, it's not me, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got to learn to jump.
You're looking good for your age. The traps barely fit in the screen on my end, so they're kind of touching the bottom of your ears if anybody's listening. But you co-founded OSDB with Aaron Rodgers.
So I'm on the board. I didn't co-found
on the board.
Aaron.
Sorry,
yeah, on the board, but we invested. No, we invested.
What do people?
Great company.
I think he's kind of made a pariah, and I just think he's just a little left of center. What could you say about him that people are getting wrong?
He's not what you think of him. I've been able to spend a little bit of time with him. He's a great, sincere, awesome, engaged individual. So I have not one negative thing to say.
He's got a bad rap. I think he's just saying a lot. I mean, almost feel like if he would have said a lot of the controversial stuff he said, like now, it would be not even a big deal. But like people just immediately, it's not exactly what everybody wants to hear. So he's a weirdo. I don't get it.
No. Look, news sells. News sells.
And he's actually
he has an opinion. He has an opinion on stuff, and he did some ayahuasca. Who cares?
Exactly.
And now I'm going to try to keep this sports themed as much as I got it. But you're a jiu-jitsu black belt.
Correct.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
is that to keep you humble?
That was the beginning of the show. We talked about doing hard shit, right? For me, there was nothing harder. It is so far past anything I had to do from a baseball perspective. I was a wrestler as well in high school. Harder than that for me. My daughter's 11. Back in 2016, she was 1. I make the joke it was a very tough pregnancy for me. I'd put on a lot of weight, right? Mm-hmm. And so I needed to get and do something. And a buddy of mine said we should try jiu-jitsu. It's back again in 2016. I was like, absolutely not. I do not want to go back to the mat. Showed up, of course, because I'm a glutton for punishment. Fell in love with it. Have dedicated the last 10 years of my life to it. Got my black belt in June of 24. Train and I teach here and there when I'm in town. I travel a lot, but I have the privilege of being able to train all over the world because I end up traveling all over the world. And it's been an amazing community. It is the hardest thing I have really ever done, and it's changed my perspective on everything. Right? There's days we make the joke, you're either the hammer or you're the nail, and you don't know what it's going to be that day, and you just show up and you just sit in the suck for an hour and a half, no matter what. And as an adult, opting to go sit in the suck is not a thing that many people enjoy doing, and traditionally avoid. Right? Yeah. As your life gets a little bit better, you make things a little easier on yourself, not the other way around.
Yeah. How do you apply that approach to business?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's lessons to be learned. I'm sure one carries over the other.
It's a huge corollary for being an entrepreneur. The value proposition of jiu-jitsu, and I talk about this often, isn't the best, right? So we all walk around and think we're capable of certain things. And you show up on a jiu-jitsu mat first day, you don't know how to tie your belt. You're wearing what looks like these oversized pajamas. And someone whose belt has a color on it makes you feel like you have the inability to do anything with your body.
Oh.
And you leave there and you go, do I want to go do this again tomorrow? Right? Like, this sucks. But you get up and you put the PJs back on, and you learn to tie your belt a little bit better, and you go get the shit kicked out of you again. for about a year and a half.
Is it like first day of school energy where you're like, oh,
Yeah, pretty much. And you have lactic acid through your whole body. You have no clue. You're flailing around, right? The most dangerous person on the mat is a week 1 white belt, because they're just rigid and stiff and have no clue what's happening. And they are trying with all their might to defend themselves. And someone's just cat playing with a mouse. And you have to get up and break through your own ego and be humble enough to say, but I want to keep going. And eventually you start learning to defend, and eventually you start learning to attack and put a game together. And then, the last kind of 2 belts, if you will, brown and into your black, is just being able to spend enough time on the mat to refine those skills. And, it's a subjective journey. It's how well do you do against your peers at your same belt level, at the belt level above you and below you. And there's people kind of gauging, and who's good in the room and who isn't, and who still needs work. And ultimately, you get called on to move up to that next level. But there's no forms, there's no katas, there's no big demonstration you're doing in front of your friends and family. It's you go show up and look at another person and shake hands and go to work for 8 minutes. And you're either doing the work the right way or they're doing the work on you.
I don't know if there's anything physically harder. I mean, just muscling up against the guy. I mean, it's just exhausting immediately. Makes you feel old. I mean,
so when we look at it from an entrepreneur perspective, think about what it takes to start a company. Right? I mentioned that you're out of business tomorrow. You've got the biggest contract. You're obsessed about things. It's the same way with jiu-jitsu. There aren't any really casual practitioners of jiu-jitsu. You either are in it or you're like, this is not for me. And as an entrepreneur, every day you get up and you have to show up again and do the thing that sucks, right? And a lot of the entrepreneurial journey, a lot of being a founder, a lot of starting a company is being the janitor and the CEO and everything in between, and having to carry that burden. And I'll call it a burden because we romanticize this idea of being an entrepreneur, right? And I think it's an amazing thing, but it's not for everyone. And showing up and doing some really hard stuff, whether or not it's jiu-jitsu or getting up to be an entrepreneur every day, will feel the same. You got to get up, you got to sit in the suck, and you got to keep pushing forward, and you have to believe that you'll get there.
Yeah.
If not, it's really easy to quit.
I've been doing my
humbling part.
Go ahead. What
the humbling part of it, of the jiu-jitsu and the entrepreneurship. That's what a lot of people don't want to deal with, is being humble about, oh, I have to clean the toilet because nobody else is going to do it. Okay, fine.
Exactly.
Like bombing on stage, like I'll do tonight. It's very humbling doing stand-up and then eating it hard because you think you got a new bit about why do I have to get a prescription to get for my dog's medicine? I don't get that. I think it's Big Chewy. That's all I wrote down.
Well, there's a lot of dog junkies, that are trying to get to
I mean, what the fuck? I looked up what's in this stuff, and it's like it's ivermectin and something else that I think there's a big conspiracy, just like my big carnival.
Duh.
Have a fair days. I don't know if you have this in California. Do you have fair days? We have them here. Kids get days off. Our kids got 2 days off public school.
Oh, like state fair days.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about a Faraday cage or something. It sounded like you said Faraday.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about it. I bet these fair companies, these state fair companies, are like Spirit Halloween, where they pretend to be shitty, but they're like $1 billion company, Yeah. And so they kind of fly under the radar because they're so shitty looking. And like I'm looking around at the fair that we spent $200 for them to have the pass, and I'm like, this looks made to be bad. Like the graphic design, everything like the layout is like IKEA, but the whole everything else is made to look a little bit worse than it should be, than it can be, I guess. And then
all the right operators, they're secret millionaires.
What here's my theory. There's a lobbying group for the fair. There used to be one fair day. Now there's 2. All I'm saying is they go to the lobby, the educational kind of board, and they go, hey, why don't we have a second fair day? And then they go, well, cool, because we don't want to show up either. So then the kids get off for a day, and Big Fair gets a lot of money.
Think about the teachers, all the teachers unions probably backing that shit.
That's what I'm saying. The teachers don't want to go.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, we'll take a day off.
Make it 3.
Right. That's my
That's funny.
conspiracy.
I have done a lot of diligence and a lot of research on different industries. The events business is a fantastic one, right? There's a lot of money to be made on margin there.
Especially
So you could
post-COVID.
So you could assume the same. The fair is just a large, oversized event. And you look at the margins on concessions. You look at the margin on the really crappy stuffies that you can win if you spend $40 trying to shoot a basketball through a rigged hoop, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways they're making dollars. And the fact that I think a lot of them still are run essentially from a troop business, right? They're packing up and moving to the next city and unpacking, right? So I don't know if these fairs are actually owned by some holding company or if they're kind of independently drifting from town to town and, having to support it that way. It's very interesting.
I hope this gets in your brain and you're coming back. I get an email from like you 3 in the AM. You're like, I've been researching all of this.
Checked it out.
I mean, you got better research agents, I'm sure. Figure this out.
I mean, well, we're on that subject.
Fair business.
How about I've had to pay $20 to watch my son play basketball that I've already paid for a league. Tomorrow, my daughter's got a cheerleading competition, $25, and it's 2 minutes of cheerleading and $15 a bar. When is this a thing now? Like, I have to pay to watch my own kid now? That's
awesome. Yeah. My daughter's 11. She does competitive dance. Already, that's a spicy, I will call it, financial commitment. But they do amazing competitions at places like Disney, where parking what feels like a mile away from the venues, $40.
Yeah,
2 cars worth of stuff, and you're eating their general concessions, which is Disney pricing. So it's a great day at a dance comp.
Huh.
Yeah, Eric, I don't know if you told me this or someone else, but they're making a facility just for the trophy parent kind of leagues, because that's the markup. That's the premium. They're getting a lot of money. Like my sister is 10 years older than me. My 3 nieces were like junior Olympic volleyball players, but she spent basically their years in high school every Saturday, Sunday, either flying out or driving to tournaments. Now they're making a gym that's just for this, that's multi-use. It's such a big industry now that they're having like a 12-court basketball place that can also be volleyball, that is just set up for these tournaments, for all-day tournaments to waste parents Saturday, Sunday.
There's so much bad with it. There's so much bad with that. Just the kids think they're professional athletes now, and they're going to disappoint their parents if they don't do good, and that's my job. And it's just like, oh my God, I think it's going to come crashing down, if I'm being honest, because this is out of control.
But I mean,
you sports are something interesting. I will tell you that much.
It's wild. It's just wild. It's all. I mean, we grew up. It was like you're in the neighborhood little league, and you play right field and second base because you stink, and you cry because you don't want to go to a game. And okay, maybe that's a little bit of myself, but I wanted to watch Saved by the Bell. This is fucked up. I don't like baseball. I don't want to play it.
Zach Morris, man, got to do it. And Screech, Mr. Belding. I'd much rather do that.
I want to watch cartoons and go right into 10 a.m. TMBC. That's for teens. Mm-hmm. And that's Saved by the Bell, City Guys, all the wannabe. Yeah, I could give you the whole lineup.
They're still watching it.
Oh, if you go on the free like TV channels on Amazon or whatever, Fubo or whatever it is, they've got Saved by the Bell channel. They got all those. They got all of it. If you need to get really high and watch 21 Jump Street, that's been my go-to.
That's amazing.
Back to Chris, because we'll go off on tangents all day.
I love it.
You've advised ultra wealthy about investing. Mm-hmm. What is something about? I think billionaires in my research I did that you're talking to, or maybe huge kind of companies that have billions under asset.
Yeah. So
what just like the Aaron Rodgers kind of question, what wouldn't we know about that world?
There's a couple things. One, they're always looking for opportunities to deploy capital in different ways. So there's the old saying, have money, make money, right? If you don't have any, it's really tough to make. And you're limited on what you can do. And why I say that is, you have your traditional 401ks, you have your money managed, right? when you get up to be what they call a accredited investor, you have a certain amount of assets, right? It opens up these alternative assets, right? Could be oil, natural gas. It could be a REIT, right? A real estate investment trust. These are all things that could still be done by your financial planner. Then you have companies like us who are able to bring these independent or privately held companies that need growth capital. And traditionally, you're investing to be on the capitalization table, right? To be one of the owners of the company. And the risk profile is naturally higher than, a bond or, investing in Apple. But so too could be your return, right? We may underwrite a deal for 8 to 10x your money in 5 to 7 years. That's a really good return, right? But the risk is they don't execute what they're supposed to in that time. And so when you have a quantum of dollars that you have as a wealthy individual or family office, you're going to do all the normal things of, understanding your portfolio and building in a bunch of hedges and building in a bunch of things so that you can make sure you have wealth preservation. But sometimes they'll look at allocating a small to medium amount of dollars into wealth creation. And that would be more similar to the type of deals we're going to do on the alternative side. Now, I'm not a financial planner. That's not what I do. This isn't financial advice. But traditionally, you're going to look in a small portion of your assets should be in higher risk, higher return type products or type companies. And what's also funny is when you look across the spectrum of investors at that level, a lot of them have created their own businesses, right? And sold them. And that's why they have these dollars. And a lot of them want to pay it forward. And they can pay it forward by being an angel investor, an early stage one, and then helping, right? That's what a lot of individuals do. They sell a company and then they want to find great other entrepreneurs they can help support with capital and then their resources or their network or whatever it might be, and certainly make a return off doing that. And then there's others that just say, look, we sold our company. We want to be passive investors. We like you as a manager who's found these companies and these opportunities, and we believe in what your thesis is, so we'll invest alongside you. And that's really where we come in, is the invest alongside. So we'll find great companies. We'll make a financial commitment to them that we'll step in. Traditionally, we join the board, and then we go out to our investors and we explain to them what the deal is and see if they want to invest alongside of us through one of our deals.
How many entities are you either on the board for or are you involved in currently?
Personally, on behalf of Solyco, 6 of our portfolio companies I'm on the board of. And those 6 are 6 that I believe, all but one of them I originated and brought into the firm. So, wrote the thesis for why we should invest. We approved it through our allocation committee, and then I joined the board and we funded.
How do
Dennis
you
Rodman getting them boards? Jeez.
Yeah. How do you avoid burnout?
Okay, big question. There's a guy, he does a ton of podcasting, but I love this statement, so I'll give him credit. Scott Galloway does a lot. He's got his own podcast, and he's probably said the best line, which is, you can have it all, but not all at once. So typically why people get burnout is they're trying to do everything. This idea of a balanced life is attainable, but just not always in balance, right? So there's seasons, and if it's a season of work, it's a season of work. Something's got to give. Maybe that's relationships with friends at the same level you were having. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's sacrifice travel, which is sacrificing part of your time with your family. All of those things, you have to understand what season you're in, right? I'm in the middle of bringing a deal to market. When this is finished, I'll be able to take a breath, which means I won't be traveling, which means I'll be home more, spending time with family. And that's where that piece comes back up, right? And I think avoid burnout is just understanding what you're capable of and what's most important in that window of time, and not being too hard on yourself that you have to be everything for everyone all the time, including yourself. And that also means health.
I think most people hear work-life balance and they think every day I have to do this much and it has to be balanced every day. But I haven't really heard it put that way, where it's like, no, you're going to be spending a lot of time doing work, but then you catch it up on the backside. I like that.
Yeah, and you see it more like a campaign. You said season, so it's kind of like it has a finite. Okay, this is going to be the trudge kind of couple months. During the summer, I'll be able to go to cheerleading competitions a lot more for fun. Yeah, that's where parenting fun time is.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard it in because I think part of the problem also is it seems like it's in perpetuity when you're stressed. Like this will be this way forever. And it usually, unless
It isn't.
you're not ever looking at what's going around, you'll burn out and it won't be, or you'll figure it out.
Exactly.
I think I ran out of my questions. Eric, you got anything?
Unless you
Look
want to
at it.
talk
I
more
prepared.
baseball.
I want some credit for preparing. By the way,
Credit for
we
doing your
don't do that on the
job.
show ever. So
I wrote new questions. I wrote new lightning round questions. You
Well,
still
good.
asking, is the hot dog a sandwich? Come on, bro.
okay, that's it. That's all you got.
Yeah,
I
I just wanna
didn't.
shit
Chris,
on you at the-
Are you promoting anything specific, or just coming on to come on?
Just coming on to come on. Yeah, I mean, generally have questions about Solyco, what we do. You can find it at our website, or I'm on all the socials, if you will, as well. So happy to chat with any of your listeners if they ever want to learn more about what we do.
How'd you come up with
I
the
might
name?
have somebody for you to talk to, Chris. I'll hit you
Oh,
up
amazing.
after this.
How'd you come up with the name? Because I keep hearing Psycho.
Yeah, me too. It's awesome.
Solyco Capital.
Yeah.
Solyco. So I joined the firm in January 22. The firm was founded in 2017. And the co-founders, like every co-founders, try to figure out what they want to call it. And one thing about our firm is it's not one of those, professional services firms that's, Brown and Brown Associates, right? No one wanted last names.
Right.
And then if you look, you can go to like a venture firm generator, and it's BlackRock, Blackstone, Riverwalk, Riverstone, Stone River, right? Evergreen Capital.
I've done the branding process, and they go, we can't have the name of another capital, anybody that's a PE or capital after it.
Exactly.
I go, well, there goes almost every Latin root word I can use. So
exactly.
Great.
So what became funny is the firm's actually headquartered out of Birmingham, Michigan, which is about an hour north of Detroit. And there's a big thing called the Eastern Market. It's a big fair, right? Back to what you were talking about. Come back around, right? And when these entrepreneurs would come in to pitch, big pharma, biotech companies, just these high tech, crazy, amazing deep tech opportunities, one of the co-founders would look at him and be like, honestly, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Break it down for me like you're selling a tomato at the Eastern Market. And so as they started to figure it out, right? Take really hard things, make it simple. That's one of our big values. Is if you look up the genus and species name for tomato, it's the first 4 letters of the first word and the last 2 letters of the second word, the first 2 letters of the second word put together. So in some ways you call us tomato capital, or it's a good story where it's easy things hard and Solyco is a made up word.
It has a story behind it. Yeah. I like that. And it has the Latin root. Well, appreciate you coming on. If there's anything else to tell the audience, let it, forever go now. What? I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Forever hold your peace.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, happy to reach out. LinkedIn's Chris M. Van Dusen. Same with Instagram, same with all of it. And look up Solyco Capital. Happy to chat with anyone. Well,
it's been a Chris Van Dusen of a podcast interview. I've been sitting on that the whole time. Yeah. All right, man.
Good luck tonight on stage, man.
I'm going to use it. I'm going to be like, dude, this guy came on. He was the Van Dusen.
This guy was on the podcast.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Sorry, Chris.
All right, guys. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Take care. All right, good.